Good evening, everyone. I'm the storyteller, and I am here to help you sleep better with true horror stories. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like my video. I would love to know where you are from and what time you're watching this video. So please leave a comment to let me know, and I will draw from that experience to tell even better stories. When you are ready, feel free to relax. At that time, I worked at a small pizza shop in a quiet neighborhood. The place wasn't anything special, just a few tables for dine-in and mostly delivery orders. Honestly, the food wasn't that great, but what made the shop stand out was that it was open 24/7, so you'd often get some tipsy customers coming in late at night. I usually worked alone, and I actually preferred it. The food wasn't hard to make, and on slow nights, I could just do whatever I wanted to pass the time. That night was nothing special, at least at first. I arrived at 9 p.m. to take over for the day manager. There were no special tasks to do that night, and since it was a Tuesday, I was ready for a quiet evening. I prepped some of the workstations and sat back, waiting for orders. A few customers came in over the next couple of hours, but then it went quiet again. I sat in the kitchen, scrolling through my phone most of the time. Around 1 a.m., I heard the doorbell ring, which happened every time someone opened the door. I got up and walked to the front counter, but stopped when I saw the main room. No one was there. I stood still, looking around, but there was nobody. A slight smile crossed my face as I walked further in and double-checked that no one had come in. I thought it was funny. Maybe I'd gotten so used to hearing the bell all night that my brain was playing tricks on me. Sure that it was nothing, I returned to my chair in the kitchen. But a little while later, the bell rang again. This time, I wasn't watching a video, so I knew I actually heard it. I got up and walked in the main room again, but stopped confused. No one was there. After a moment, I opened the front door and stuck my head outside, looking up and down the sidewalk that ran along the building. There was nobody outside, not even any cars in the parking lot. I wouldn't say I was scared or creeped out, just really confused. I messed with the door a little, trying to make the bell ring without opening it, but it didn't seem to. It was strange, but I didn't know what else to do about it. I waited in the front for about 30 minutes, but the door never rang again. So I went back to the kitchen. It was between 2 and 3 a.m., usually the slowest part of the night. Sure enough, just a few minutes after I sat back down, the doorbell rang again. This time, I stayed seated and just listened. I didn't hear anything, but just to be safe, I called out, "Hello? Is anyone out there?" No response. I figured the door was just doing whatever it was doing, so I ignored it and stayed in the back, continuing to scroll on my phone. Somehow, there wasn't a single customer for another hour. So, for the past 3 hours, it had been completely dead. It was now 4 a.m., so I started prepping for the next shift. I got up and went to the front to start counting the register from the few orders I had at the start of my shift. But while I was there, I felt strange. Something fell off. I kept glancing up at the empty room ahead of me and then back at the kitchen behind me, feeling like I was being watched or something. I thought it was just the unusual nature of the night I'd been having, with the door and everything. I was just thankful my shift was almost over. A few more minutes passed, and then I heard a thud on the floor behind me. It was like the sound of a boot stepping on the ground, and it instantly sent a chill through me, making me quickly turn around. I felt my breath leave my lungs. There was a man standing just 5 or 6 feet away from me. He was wearing all black, ripped-up clothes and a hoodie that draped over his face, stopping just above his eyes. His eyes were bloodshot and hollow. I don't know if he was drunk or high or what, but he clearly wasn't sane right now. Then I noticed his left hand was holding a knife, his knuckles white from how tightly he was clutching it. I stayed motionless, trying not to escalate the situation. But after several seconds of him just staring at me without moving, I decided to speak. "Hey, listen, you can have the cash from the register. I won't say anything. Please just let me go," I said, trying to say anything to get out of this. But he just stood there, still gripping the knife and staring at me with that 1,000-yard stare. Honestly, I think I was even more terrified because he clearly wasn't a normal guy. There was no predicting what he might do. The counter I was at was L-shaped, extending toward the back where he was. To run, I'd have to run a few feet toward him, around the counter, and then back toward the front door. With him being only 5 feet away from me, he could easily grab me or attack me if I tried. So I did the next best thing. I dove over the counter. It wasn't graceful, but I guess it worked. I slammed into the ground and got up. The guy was already sprinting toward me, his face full of uncontrollable bloodlust and rage. I ran out the door and only got a few seconds ahead before I heard him follow me. He was too close for me to even try getting to my car, which was behind the building. I just kept running, making it to the road, hoping a car would drive by and help. But at some point, he stopped chasing. I don't know when, because I was so focused on running and not looking back. I called the cops and waited on the road for them to get there. It took about 5 minutes. The guy was gone, but I guess after chasing me, he went back into the shop and just trashed the place. Everything was destroyed, and he left through the back door, scraping his knife all over the side of my car. It's likely he had been watching me from a distance through the shop windows and used the doorbell as a distraction to sneak in without being noticed. Admittedly, it worked perfectly, which makes me feel pretty dumb. It's also creepy knowing that there was about an hour gap between the last time the bell rang and when I saw him. So he was probably hiding inside the shop the whole time. It's really strange, though, because I had no idea who he was. I thought he was just some random guy, but his actions seemed oddly directed toward me. Maybe it was just a wrong place, wrong time kind of thing. I don't know. They never found him. I didn't stay working there for long after that, fearing he might come back. A few years ago, I was working 2 jobs to save up for a condo. I had a stable 9 to 5 full-time job, but I also did deliveries whenever I had time to earn a bit extra. In fact, I often found myself working 30 hours a week just doing deliveries after my regular job. That night, I started after having dinner at 6:30. It was a pretty good night, to be honest. I was getting a lot of good orders with nice tips. So really, I should have just taken the rest of the night off and given myself a break. But I was greedy and kept working, hoping to keep getting well-paying orders. By 11 p.m., it had slowed down a lot, and the last few orders I'd done were average. I really wanted to end on a good note, so I kept driving around until a decent order came up. Finally, one did, a nearly $20 delivery, just 15 minutes away. Who wouldn't take that, right? Once I got the food, I started heading to the address. The roads were, of course, very quiet and empty at that time of night, so the drive was smooth. However, it led me toward a wooded section of town I wasn't even aware had houses. I double-checked the route on my map to make sure I was going the right way. When I got to the final turn, it was onto a well-maintained gravel road going into the forest. I drove a little ways until I reached a gate. It was a small gate, basically just 2 pillars on either side of the path with a chain running between them. However, the chain wasn't latched, so I drove through. My headlights weren't very bright, so I couldn't see too far ahead, but not long after the gate, I pulled into a parking area. I was confused. It definitely wasn't leading to a house. I parked the car, put it in park, and looked out my windows, scanning the area. There was a sign on one end of the parking lot. This was a forest preserve. I had done deliveries to parks before, but I always thought forest preserves closed by 8 or 9 p.m. I didn't see anyone around to deliver the order to. Just as I was starting to question what exactly I was supposed to do here, my phone started ringing. It was the customer I had picked up. The voice on the other end was deep and gravelly, almost hard to understand. He said he saw on the map that I had parked and asked if I could see him. I said no. He explained that he was camping with some buddies down one of the trails, and I should be able to spot a campfire if I walked a little closer. I thought, all right, realizing this was probably why the tip was so high. I did mention to him that I thought forest preserves were closed, but he said this one allowed overnight camping on certain days. I wasn't an outdoorsy person, so I didn't know any better, and I didn't see any reason for him to lie. I turned off my car, got out with the food, and quickly realized it was really dark, so I had to use my phone as a flashlight to see where I was going. There was only one trail leading out from the parking area, so at least I couldn't get lost. I started walking. It was really quiet outside. I expected to hear the group of guys talking and laughing in the distance, but there wasn't anything, just the wind and crickets. Then I saw it, the light, an orange flame glowing and flickering out in the trees. Oddly, it wasn't on the path or right off the side of it. It was far out of the way, and amidst all the trees. I couldn't see too far down the trail to know if there was a direct path to it or not, but I decided to walk straight toward the flame. As I got closer, things started to feel really strange. First of all, I didn't hear any voices. And secondly, once I got even closer, I didn't see anyone. It was just a small campfire burning in the middle of nowhere. No chairs, no tents. Literally nothing. I barely got the chance to whisper, "What the hell?" under my breath before I heard a stick snap from somewhere out in the trees. I jolted my head toward the sound. There was someone there, but too far for the light to reach, and the faint figure I could make out was standing still, like they were trying not to be seen. I felt incredibly uneasy. "Hey, I'm the delivery driver. I'll just put your order down here," I yelled out, setting the bag on the ground. As I did, the person suddenly decided to show themselves and walk toward me. The man was tall, with dark hair and a scruffy beard. He apologized and said he didn't see me walking up. It was that same deep, gravelly voice from the phone. His smile was disturbing, like he was faking it, and it was really strange that he only revealed himself once he knew I saw him. Nothing added up. I stumbled over a few words, but as he got closer and closer, I just decided to turn and run. He called out several times in this creepy, overly nice voice, asking me to come back and saying that he had cash for me. I didn't stop until I got to the car. I fumbled around with my keys in my shaky hands as I tried to hurry and start the engine. I backed out and pulled back onto the gravel path to leave, but had to slam on my brakes. The chain was latched across the pillars now, blocking the exit. I stared at it for far too long, trying to think of a way to get out or unlatch it. Then I heard footsteps coming up behind my car. I didn't even look. I just floored it onto the grass and squeezed around the pillars. It was a tight squeeze because there was a short ditch close to the side, so if I messed up, my car could slide down and maybe get stuck. Once I was back on the gravel, I sped away. I didn't know what happened back there, but I was stupid not to call the police. Even though I think that if I had, they would have likely been long gone anyway. The following morning, I did a little investigating and found that the forest preserve I was at did indeed close at 8 p.m. and never allowed camping or campfires. To me, that confirmed the horrible nature of the situation I was in. What he intended to do, I don't know, and it still haunts me to think about what could have happened in that forest that night. I work at a data center located in an old warehouse on the outskirts, far from city. My job is simple: monitor the systems and make sure everything stays online. If anything goes down, I head to the operation rooms and usually just restart the system. It's a quiet and easy job, but since it's an overnight shift and I work alone, I have a lot of freedom to do whatever I want, as long as I'm checking the systems regularly. When I start my shift at 10 p.m., I drive to the building and park under the big trees. It's always quiet here, with no one around. After quickly checking the systems, I set up my laptop and start watching my show on Netflix to pass the time. It's rare for the systems to go down overnight. Since there's less traffic at night, things usually run smoothly. Occasionally, there's an outage, but it's just one system, and I can quickly fix it by restarting. I had watched about 2 episodes when suddenly a notification popped up on my monitor. One of the systems had lost connection. I paused the show, got up, and headed downstairs, walking through several hallways until I reached the main hub of the data center. It's a large room with rows of massive shelves filled with servers. The notification indicated the issue was in the last row in the far corner of the room. I walked down the aisle and found the exact location. And oddly enough, the problem was clear right away. The main power cable had been unplugged and was lying on the ground, like it had been pulled out or fallen somehow. I didn't know how that could happen. In all my years working here, I never seen a heavy-duty cable just fall out like that. Anyway, I plugged it back in and rebooted the system. Everything came back online and seemed to be working fine. I tried to rationalize it, thinking maybe the cable had slowly come loose over time, and it just happened to fall out tonight. After doing a quick check of the other aisles, I headed back up the hallways toward my office. As I was walking through one of the corridors, I suddenly heard an unfamiliar sound. It was like the sound of a heavy door thumping closed in a doorway. It was a bit creepy, especially with how quiet the building was. Unfortunately, I didn't know the entire layout of the warehouse, so if it was a door, I had no idea which one or where it came from. While it sounded like a door, it could have been anything else. This was a massive warehouse, and the metal pipes would sometimes bend and creak, making similar thump sounds. But this particular sound I hadn't heard before. I decided not to overthink it and made my way back to the office. I double-checked the systems again, then continued watching my show. Only a few minutes had passed, and I had barely gotten through one scene before I heard what sounded like quick footsteps scurrying through the corridor next to me. I jumped up and opened the door. Looking down the hallway, there was nothing, just an empty corridor with a door at the far end, but the footsteps seemed to be right outside my office. I knew I wouldn't be able to shake the feeling if I didn't check, so I walked toward the end of the hall and opened the door. When I did, I looked down the next hallway and barely caught sight of a door closing, as if someone had just gone through it. My heart started pounding. I cautiously walked further up and opened another door. This one led to a hallway with several office doors. "Is someone in here?" I called out. My voice echoed through the empty space. It was eerily quiet, not the slightest sound in the building. Were they hiding in one of these rooms? The thought made me uneasy, and I decided not to go further down the hallway. I took a step back toward the door, but just then, one of the office doors next to me suddenly swung open. I only caught a glimpse of a man running out of the dimly lit room before I turned and bolted out of there. I could hear his footsteps echoing behind me as I ran to the next corridor and into the stairwell. Not wanting to risk getting trapped, I took the fire exit and ran into the parking lot. Once I was closer to my car, I started calling the police. The man didn't chase me out the same exit, though. The cops arrived pretty quickly and did an extensive search of the building, which took almost half an hour, but the man was gone. He probably ran out of a different exit and into the woods behind the building. His presence explained a lot. The wire that had been disconnected earlier was in the corner section, which he likely bumped into while sneaking around. My company conducted a huge investigation, reviewing security footage and tried to figure out how he got in and whether he had stolen anything. I didn't get much information, but it was clear that whatever he was doing there, he didn't want me to know. He probably planned to prevent me from uncovering what he was up to. How he would have done that after leading me through all those hallways, I'm fortunate enough not to know.